Okay, welcome everybody to a new episode of Muva podcasts. Today's guest has been featured frequently in recent times in multiple media outlets, and this could be largely due to the high-profile corporate moves going on around the US, and a number of things. That's maybe my guess, but John Boyd of the Boyd Company is who we have today. And John, it's a pleasure to have you on the program. There's a lot of things going on, but thank you for coming on the show today.
Andrew, it's great to be on the show.
And so thank you, John. I'd like to start at the beginning, if it's possible with you, just to learn a little bit about you. Where did you grow up and what was your childhood like?
Well, my story begins in central New Jersey, in Mercer County, which really it was a great place, and it still is a great place to grow up. It's sort of on the DMZ line, halfway between Philadelphia and New York, about an hour away from the Jersey Shore. So I spent summers on Long Beach Island and in Surf City.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, it was really a great place to grow up. I go back periodically. I live in South Florida now most of the year.
Oh, so you moved from, is this a recent move to South Florida?
No, I think I was ahead of the curve, quite frankly. You know, the big theme is this massive migration of people out of New Jersey and New York into South Florida over the past year or so during the pandemic. But I've been spending most of the time here over the past few years. A big part of my childhood was spent here. My parents always owned a home in Fort Lauderdale. I always knew that I wanted to live here. It really is a special place. And of course, I'm able to live and work remotely, which is terrific. Yeah. Our firm is very active in South Florida, as you might imagine as well.
Yeah, so that's an interesting thing because I will probably get into that, but I see a lot of groups moving to South Florida of recently, corporations, and we hear about them moving to other parts. But you did grow up in the New Jersey area. They call it Surf City. Is there surf out that way?
Yeah, there's actually a great Jan and Dean song, Surf City. That's the Surf City in Southern California. But yes, New Jersey has its own Surf City. It's really a special place. And, you know, those summer months in New Jersey are really special. The summer is such a short season.
Interesting.
And that's sort of a common theme among expats, if you will, folks from Jersey. They always think about those months in July and August whether you're on the Seaside Boardwalk or the Point Pleasant Boardwalk or yes, Long Beach Island or Margate. You know, those are some really special towns.
And you see a lot of people from New Jersey now making it along with yourself to South Florida and keeping that memories of those areas, and it reminds you of somewhat of the summer there in the spring months in Florida.
I think much to the chagrin of native Floridians. You know, but, and this has been a trend prior to COVID. I mean, just the loss of thousands of people each year, the loss of billions of dollars of taxable income from New York and New Jersey, yep, and South Florida. Look, they've always called South Florida the sixth borough because of all their driver's license. What's happening now is you're getting an influx of capital from California. You're getting tech companies now from the Bay Area that are looking beyond Austin or Phoenix and considering, you know, and setting up shop in South Florida. Well, despite all that, still yet to find good pizza or a good bagel.
Yes. So that's very important there. Did you go to college? And that'd be interesting to know just a little bit of how you're getting into what you're doing.
So in college, I studied political science. I went to the College of New Jersey. It's a small school in Ewing. It's in Mercer County. It's about 7,000 students. And they had a especially strong political science program. They still do. After college, I worked for a congressman briefly. And I always knew that I'd join the firm. Again, you know, my dad started our business back in 1975.
Boy, that's
Right.
business for a long time. So you worked for a congressman getting out of college. What prompted you to do that? What was the interest? That was the political science background of what you were studying?
I always loved political science. My two major joys as a kid, or at least the ones that I can speak about publicly, okay, or I
Yeah.
would say the Yankees. I love baseball
Yep.
and politics. I used to listen to the Bob Grant show on 77 WABC.
Oh,
Always,
wow.
and politics is a big part of the world of corporate site selection. Policy
Yes.
directly impacts where companies spend capital and create jobs.
Yes.
Right.
And that so and the corporate side back in 1975 when your dad had started the business, was it focused? It was focused on corporate site selection back then, or was it doing something different?
No, we've always been a corporate site selection firm. 90% of our work is in the corporate sector, advising major corporations where to locate their facilities throughout North America. Some of our major clients include Boeing, JP Morgan Chase,
Mm-hmm.
Pratt and Whitney, TD Bank, Royal Caribbean Cruises, UPS.
Oh, you,
And another part of our business is advising developers on where to do new projects.
okay.
And we've also assisted a number of cities and states over the years on their industry attraction programs. But the development part of our business is interesting. We've helped a number of really interesting developers over the years, like the Howard Hughes Corporation. The Investment Properties Division of the Mormon Church is a client of ours. They're actually the largest landholder in the state of Florida, which a lot of people find interesting.
Yeah, this is the Mormon Church largest landholder. That is very interesting. It's also Howard Hughes is a very popular name, particularly for those on the West Coast. That name rings a lot with the development of many things coming out of the Los Angeles area. Did your dad or your grandfather ever get to meet Howard Hughes or deal with him?
No, that was a little bit before my dad's time, but again, Vegas is a big part of our firm's history. The Hughes work we did was with Summerlin, which at the time was the nation's largest planned community,
Okay.
and a popular landing spot, obviously, for firms leaving California. And we actually have owned homes there over the years. I love Summerlin,
Yep.
and talk about how I got into this business. My dad would always include me on business trips.
As a
As a
kid.
I learned far more with him with our business than I ever did in school. I mean, just
How old were you when you'd go on these business trips?
a youngster. I mean, my first memory is 5, 6 years old.
Oh
I
my
remember
goodness.
I remember meeting Sammy Davis Jr. At the time, I was doing work for Howard Hughes and doing work for the Nevada Development Authority. That's now called the Las Vegas Global Alliance, but that was their industry attraction company. And we did work there, and I got to meet Sammy Davis Jr. after a show at the old Desert Inn. So
What?
these,
That would have been something.
yeah, it just sort of it got into my DNA, I guess. This,
Yeah.
uh, you know,
How was Sammy?
he was a pro. I mean, they always say that he was the most talented of all of the members of the Rat Pack. I mean, he could sing, he could dance, he could play every instrument, and I think we can all learn from Sammy Davis Jr. because he was a pro.
Yep.
He understood the business and he was always prepared.
Yeah, that's a very key thing for any business. So this young age, it would have been something to go on the road with your old man, meeting legends of that time and still today, legends of today. Definitely that I could see how that would prompt you to be more and more interested. Yet you started in political science because did you see a connection with political science and what was going on there, or what was the real interest in getting into that? You were just interested in politics in general?
Yes, and I mean, this was in the early 2000s, and we had a much less divisive political culture.
Yes.
I mean, the idea of working in politics now, I would. It's
Yeah,
not
yeah. I
I
get
didn't
it.
want to be, but I was doing things like constituent services, and back in the early 2000s, I mean, there was the idea of the Rockefeller Republican. There was pro business, but more moderate on social issues. It was
Yes,
a
yes, yes.
environment than we have today. I will
Yeah.
say, look, I mean, politics is a major part, policy is a major part of corporate location decisions.
Yep.
And, we analyze policy very closely on behalf of our site-seeking clients.
So that's really interesting, and what you guys are doing is very interesting. I'm going to get into this a little bit here on. So we've talked about what you sort of your prior background and going to where you are, and now you're coming from New Jersey into Florida. But how your background, your company is different to a commercial real estate brokerage company. As I understand things, it's rather unique. Can you give us a little background there? I come from a commercial real estate background, and you have commercial real estate brokers that represent corporations in choosing where they want to create new homes. How is that the Boyd Company are a fair bit different? Can you give a little background on that and how you guys work with businesses?
Yes, and that's what distinguishes us from a lot of the large commercial real estate firms. We're a fee-based consultancy,
Right.
and our site selection recommendations are not tied to any type of vested interest or a downstream commission interest.
Mm-hmm.
So companies can trust our judgments, our benchmark reports, as part of their overall calculations and site selection decisions. That said, we work very closely with the largest commercial real estate brokers. They serve a very important role in all of this.
Right.
And I will say this: people ask me all the time, how has the site selection business changed over the past 5 decades?
Mm-hmm.
One of the major changes is that more projects are being done in-house. So the role of the consultant is much different today than it was even just a decade or so ago. And
when you say the site selection's being done in-house, you're saying the site selection is being done in-house by the corporation as opposed to the real estate brokerage company?
It's the brokerage is playing a larger role. And the reason why is because,
Gotcha.
there's so much information available at the fingertips of smart executives.
Right.
And these companies have caseloads and experiences of handling successful site selection projects. So the role of the consultant today, very often, is to be part of a team effort, to provide a quantitative analysis, measuring business costs, measuring taxes, creating an analytical document that makes sense, or that'll make a case for a Phoenix versus a Salt Lake City, for example, for a specific project.
Gotcha.
And then doing under the radar screen field work, where we'll do labor market investigations, of course, protecting the anonymity of the client. And those are all part of the services that we provide.
That's very interesting. So that's a good question as to, did the Boyd Company, did it begin in 1975? Is that when it began, or was when you first remember your dad?
My dad at the time, my dad started the firm in 1975.
Okay.
He was with Dun & Bradstreet in New York,
Okay.
and decided to go out on his own. And then the rest is history.
Yeah, and the rest is history for sure. And now, but your dad is still involved in the business, correct?
He sure is. I just got off the phone with him right before.
So how do you find it working with your dad? How does that work? What you both provide different strengths and different things that you like to do? How do you break up tasks, and how does that work?
It's a lot easier with me being in Florida and him being back in Princeton, quite frankly.
Right.
I really am the most fortunate person. We have a great relationship. I'm grateful, quite frankly, that we get along as well as we do. We argue about sports more than we do business.
Oh, you have different sporting teams then?
He's a big sports guy, and so am I. But
yeah.
we make a pretty good team.
Yeah, it's a fabulous thing that you guys can work together and enjoy the work together. You would mainly be the media face? Is that how you would say it? And your dad is doing how would you sort of describe the things that you guys do differently that complements you guys working together so well in the business?
Well, I think my dad really is one of the the pioneers of this niche industry, this corporate site selection industry.
Right.
Our firm started as really the oldest firm doing what we do.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a chance just to learn from him over the years. And, we do have different areas of focus. I do a lot of media work.
Yep. That makes a lot of sense. When you talk about the analytics, and there's a lot of analysis going on in so many different locations that businesses are choosing to relocate to, I'm going to guess just randomly some of the areas that might stand out of being, say, the state of California, and maybe the San Francisco, Silicon Valley area, and moving a lot of press of recent certainly has been about moves of Silicon Valley companies out to Austin, Texas. You have you had any background, or do you have any insight into these moves?
Yes, we've been very active in Central Texas over the years, and particularly the Austin market. Dell and HP are both clients of ours.
Okay.
Both client of ours. And Texas really has a winning recipe for business attraction.
Mm-hmm.
Low taxes, a pro-business regulatory environment, and I think most importantly, a real pro-business cohesive economic development leadership. You have several governors in a row that just understand and personalize the art of economic development. And you have a real hospitable attitude towards business, very much unlike what we see in California.
Yeah, we hear that a lot. This is very interesting, and there's a fair bit of animosity amongst people sometimes with businesses moving out there, feeling like they milk the system in California, and in order to before making it out that way. What's their feeling like by people in Texas? Are they welcoming of these companies coming in there?
Yes, and our clients frequently tell us, our California-based clients frequently tell us that Sacramento lawmakers treat them almost as an antagonist.
Huh.
Right? We saw that one legislator a few months ago tell Elon Musk to go F himself.
No kidding.
This is, Musk being one of the largest private employers in the state of California. And again, you're beginning to see, I think what happened in the Georgia runoff is an interesting indicator. This idea, will red states that are recipients of this in-migration, will they turn into blue states? I think you're starting to sense and see some anti-growth pushback, particularly in the Austin market. Incentives are becoming especially contentious.
Right.
We'll see how that plays out. I think ultimately people need to remember why they left California.
Yes.
And not try and import those failed anti-business policies.
That's a very interesting point there. You mentioned Dell and HP as being clients that you have represented. Dell, I believe, didn't they begin in Austin, Texas?
Yes, yeah, Round Rock.
Right, okay. And HP, they are in Texas. I'm not sure where. Are they in Austin, or are they somewhere else?
Houston,
that's right. Okay. And do you know anything about? I guess you mentioned Elon Musk's the conversation I was had with him. Do you know what prompted them with Austin, Texas, as opposed to somewhere else in Texas? Is there something that's prompting the move out to Austin specifically?
For the Gigafactory location in Travis County, that's a particularly attractive piece of real estate.
Okay.
They like the site, and they went with it. But again, the labor market is there with the type of skill sets that Tesla requires. The Austin market is really regarded as a premier skill set. I think being in a mid-continent location is consistent with Tesla's growth strategy. Mm-hmm. And if you look at the types of models that Tesla is developing, and of course the truck, which will be a big part of their sales moving forward.
Yes,
Texas sense.
That's very interesting with Tesla. But then the other business that's moved out to Austin is Oracle. Now, do you know anything what would prompt them? Is that just that Musk and Larry Ellison are mates, or what would prompt that one?
Again, the overall positive business climate
Yep.
and the IT skill sets in that market. The region's growing astronomically, and it's importing skill sets. The rise of the remote workforce has really been a friend to Central Texas. You have tech workers fleeing the Bay Area in record droves. Many of them employing the services of Muva, we see this trend accelerating in the months ahead.
Yeah, I think it might accelerate for years to come, even when after the virus is released. Do you have a viewpoint on that? That's at least my viewpoint.
I agree. Remote working was a trend prior to COVID. Roughly 5% of the workforce worked remotely. Clearly, COVID has accelerated that trend. The cost savings for companies are enormous when they can reduce Class A office space commitments. Yeah. There's HR and recruiting advantages of this model. Every survey shows that workers at least want the option to work remotely on a hybrid basis. We're not projecting the end of the office by any stretch of the imagination, but we think it'll be more of a hybrid model. And that means cost savings for companies. It means more flexibility with recruiting. It's really a win-win. And the other big takeaway for the commercial real estate industry, projects are getting smaller, and there's a need for more mixed-use developments.
Oh, there's some very interesting things you're bringing up there. I have to just touch on two things briefly. This hybrid model has been talked about by a number of media outlets, actually, of the hybrid model. And if we could just get a little bit more on how you view that. So we're thinking that the office will still exist, but it will be a worker coming in maybe 2 days a week in the office instead of the old school 5 days. Is that how you would view it, or how do you view some of the ways this hybrid model might function in the future?
I think we're seeing, offices decentralized, and the office becomes almost like a space station.
No, interesting.
Reporting periodically, and you have critical corporate space used for training activities, different types of team building events. Obviously, meetings that will need to happen in person will happen in the office.
Yeah,
whether it's 2 days a week, whether it's 3 days a week, whether there's company-specific programs that emphasize and encourage and incentivize being in the office more or less, that'll be company-specific.
Yep. And when you're talking about thank you. This helps give us, I think, myself and our listeners a very good understanding. We get tidbits in the news media, but it's really great to have someone who's on the front line to give us some real accurate information about what is happening out there and what's motivating businesses and what's motivating these decisions. One other thing you just mentioned there was the commercial real estate industry having these, I think you said, small mixed use projects. When you say mixed use, is that a mixture of office and a residential component, or how are you viewing that?
So a common denominator among successful suburban markets attracting these types of corporate projects is a presence of a mixed-use development where you have, this idea of live, work, and play.
Yep.
Okay, you want a community that offers the types of lifestyle amenities that a tech worker in San Jose or San Francisco finds desirable, but in a lower cost, lower tax setting.
Oh yes, gotcha.
In Central Texas or the Phoenix region, for example. Okay, so
yes.
Looking at a need for new mixed-use developments, the Woodlands, for example, is a very successful project in Texas. The Legacy project in the Dallas Metroplex area has been a big part of their winning economic development formula. in recent months.
That's
And, you know, projects are getting smaller. 30 years ago, the average square foot per worker was approaching 200 square feet.
mm-hmm.
Now it's closer to 90 square feet per worker. So,
Oh my goodness, under half.
right. And this is creating new opportunities for developers to do new repurposing projects. You think about the millions of square feet of vacant retail or soon to be vacant retail.
No, yes.
Some of the most valuable commercial real estate in America. This is now primed for repurposing. The idea of repositioning this for a retailer is just ridiculous now. I mean, look at the state of e-commerce. So our clients are increasingly looking at opportunities to repurpose this into new mixed use and Class A office space.
So and I'm going to go into one thing we talk about a fair bit. We've talked about tech. Some of these companies and these highest profile moves have been what we would classify as tech companies. Is the change in this office use, in this mixed use that's going to have these lifestyle amenities, are there going to be specific features that are going to be specifically encouraging for tech workers? Especially high-speed internet, something that's really...
I love that you mentioned the high-speed internet. I mean, with this Zoom culture today,
yes.
We're seeing a lot of investments in home office equipment, video teleconferencing equipment. That's the new status symbol among executives is who has the best home studio to do Zoom presentations and media.
Yeah.
Presentations. But in terms of what types of lifestyle amenities, bike trails are very popular. Open spaces are really in vogue among developers, especially the pandemic.
Yep. That would even make it even more centralized. So that's a really interesting perspective. And then the perspective of the retail. How do you view the retail side of it? There's still got to be, you still want to be, in order to have this lifestyle amenities, you'd think there would be places for these people to be able to still eat and all those sort of things. So the restaurants won't exactly go away, will they?
No, retail clearly is facing significant challenges because of the rise of e-commerce, because of the COVID lockdown restrictions. Mm-hmm. A lot of the retail, I think, will be repurposed into last mile distribution centers, types of recreation activities. But yeah, I mean, there's a need for retail and restaurants, of course. Lifestyle amenities include shopping and restaurants and bars. All of the big popular mixed-use facilities have some element of that. And you talk about restaurants. A big theme we're seeing now are ghost kitchens. I'm not sure if this is something that's been on the radar.
Ghost kitchens? No, I've never even heard of such a term.
Very popular in South Florida. It's really an industry born from the pandemic. And you're seeing celebrity chefs with a name brand do, delivery-only kitchens.
Huh.
Right? So they reduce their utility costs, they reduce their labor costs, they reduce their insurance, they reduce their overall operating cost expenses. And it's takeout only, and they incorporate social media platforms where you can, participate in your meal being prepared, and you can order online.
Oh my goodness.
Foodies love this concept, and a lot of the Instagram influencers are really getting behind it.
How interesting. So you're having probably new businesses pop up to service this ghost kitchen.
And that's the American story, isn't it? I mean, we always find a way to create new industries. And despite this challenging COVID times, this has been a time of remarkable innovation. You think about how we fast forward a vaccine, how we're distributing it to millions of people. Of course, not as fast, smoothly as we'd all like to see.
Yeah.
Time of just incredible innovation, people working from home and new technologies being created. It really is an exciting time that I think will give birth to a lot of new entrepreneurial activity in the months and years ahead.
Yes, I absolutely agree with that. I see a lot of our business was at Muva has definitely seen the impact of that, but we weren't a function of we didn't begin as a function of the pandemic, but it definitely brought more attention for our business. There's no doubt about that. It's quite remarkable what we've learned in the process of all this, and I can see other businesses utilizing remote and different ways to create convenience, I think, isn't it? And it's a key overall theme of convenience when you talk about lifestyle amenities, ghost kitchens, convenience. I keep thinking convenience is popping up here amongst everything else. Of course, there's where people want safety, people want this, and people want that, but convenience is coming to my mind as a common theme here. Do you see that?
Right. We're a nation that wants convenience. We want instant gratification. We want to be able to click and get our goods and services delivered immediately. And we're also an economy that, needs to always look and create efficiencies. And corporations are cutting costs by reducing a lot of redundant and waste cost structures.
Yes.
And I'd like to see the public sector sort of fast forward into the modern era and begin using technology more and to be more.
Oh yeah. They're slow to adapt. I think they will be forced into it slowly and surely, but they are slow to adapt. I no doubt about that. They are slow to adapt. Do you ever assist cities in planning as it relates to encouraging businesses? Do you get requests from cities to say, John, we would like your feedback on what would help us encourage some of these large businesses or rapidly growing businesses to come to our location and bring a highly skilled workforce to our location and help make our city a more desirable location? Do you get that request, or do you just deal with these as the businesses request such?
We do. And again, 90% of our work is in the corporate sector, advising companies where to locate and providing counsel to developers where to do projects. But each year we do a one or two projects for a city or for a state. And we've had an interesting mix of cities that we've counseled over the years. Las Vegas, we've been especially active in the Las Vegas market over the years. We've done a lot of work in Phoenix over the years. We've provided counsel to Nashville and Memphis.
Well, those are
we've been
quite a variety.
Very active in Canada too over the years.
Out of the country as well.
Right. Montreal is a market that we have a lot of history. And my dad actually, you mentioned how my dad began our firm. Yeah. Our first projects were in Montreal. Of course, before I was born, his first projects were in Montreal when Bill 101 passed. Very controversial bill that mandated French as the official language. And it created a sea change of corporate out-migration, particularly in the banking industry, from Montreal to Toronto.
Wow, that is something. Do you see some commonalities between what's going on with these cities? When you talked about Montreal, is there a commonality with Las Vegas and are there some commonalities with these Vegas and Phoenix and Nashville and Montreal? Or are they all very different?
I think a common denominator is, again, quantifying strategic advantages and communicating those advantages to the right people, the right corporate audience. Yes. And I think we have a way that we're able to do that. You hit on something interesting, though, the idea of Montreal and that sea change of companies, leaving Montreal for Toronto. What really happened with Bill 101 was anti-business social policy.
Oh, there is something I wouldn't have known.
And that is something that we've seen in recent years. So whether that be the bathroom bill in North Carolina several years ago, which led the NCAA to leave and other projects not go to North Carolina. And some other states have dealt with legislation similar to that. So yeah, and of course, Montreal is doing very well right now. They have a lot of advantages, the favorable exchange rate, its immigration policy, which is pro-business. Montreal is really a leader in artificial intelligence. But years ago, that was a real challenge for them, and the business of site selection, that Bill 101 is really regarded as one of the first major examples of anti-business social legislation.
Huh, how interesting. And it created the birth of other cities becoming better.
That's true. That certainly is true.
This is really fascinating. Are you seeing US companies make it to Canada now?
We are. In recent months, you have Morgan Stanley and State Street move operations to Montreal. Again, they have a real unique strength in artificial intelligence and cognitive robotics.
Whoa.
Much of it with the University of Montreal, which really is Canada's, one of the premier AI universities in the world. And companies like Facebook and Microsoft and Google have major AI operations in Montreal, and other markets too. The province of New Brunswick continues to be an attractive place for data center operations. And we see a number of new opportunities, particularly in the banking and financial services industry in the months ahead. We see Canada really emerging as a premier nearshore alternative, especially with talk of new regulations and new tax increases.
So Canada will be a definite competitor. What about Florida? Is that a competitor for South Florida? Are they putting their hand up as a competitor as well?
Wall Street South, how many times have we heard that moniker now? Elliott coming down here, Carl Icahn, Blackstone, and of course Goldman is reportedly looking to move their asset management division to South Florida. All of that's great. It's an endorsement not only on Florida's business climate, but on the skill sets that exist here. And the idea that Florida really is uniquely connected to the global marketplace. Companies that want to grow their operations in Latin America have always viewed South Florida as a very logical place, but Florida has also been a major recipient of investment and intellectual capital from Asia and from Europe.
Oh, I wouldn't have known the Asia side. That's an interesting note. Yeah, that is very interesting. So that's a great background. There's been a ton of changes we just mentioned with all this stuff. Are there anything would there be some key key significant changes you've seen with commercial relocation over the past 12 months?
The big change, of the moment, or change of attitude. It's really a people first mentality that's driving corporate location decisions today.
Oh, so there you go.
Site seeking companies need to pay attention to traditional business climate factors like the cost of doing business and taxes and regulations, transportation assets, and the talent in a specific market. But ultimately, now more than ever, it really becomes a question: can I hire the best people in this location? Can I retain the best people in this location? Because ultimately, companies are only their people.
Yeah, that's so true.
And one other thought about that: this trend of the remote workforce coincides with another big trend and change of philosophy in corporate culture, and that's the decline of employee loyalty. So,
yes,
not only are companies more mobile than ever, but employees are more mobile than ever.
Yeah. And so employees are more mobile than ever, instead of being 20 years at one company, it might be standard to be 1 year at the company.
Yes, that's correct. Some of the most industrious, highly motivated and attractive workers are the most mobile.
Yeah, very interesting. And that would also have there's got to be a push a bit for where the headquarters, that is going to affect where the groups of these companies migrate to, will affect the desirability to be in that city. So you might go there for a job, but if you knew 4 other companies that you would consider working for are also in that region, that makes it more attractive again as a place to consider relocating to.
Absolutely. And that's one of the big challenges that some of the smaller markets that want to join this growth pattern and
Yes.
get projects, the big challenge is that there's not an existing cluster of companies in that particular industry, because you're right, the fleeing tech worker from San Jose or San Francisco would like to not only reduce their operating costs, their cost of living expenses and taxes, but they'd also like to be in a market that provides other types of opportunities and not have to necessarily do a move or relocation every couple of years.
Yeah, it's too much. It's too much. It's a stressful thing to be doing. John, it's just been such a fabulous podcast. I've got one last question, if we can. I don't want to take too much time, but I'd love to know one important tip you might have for business owners considering a new home for their business. Is there one important tip that you could think of that would stand out that you would say to the business owner?
I think that the most important thing is to remember your company is only as good as your people. And be cognizant that your workers are inundated with temptations to leave your company and look for a better offer. Not only are companies more mobile than ever, employees are more mobile than ever today. So, be in locations that are desirable to attracting and retaining the best talent. And also, don't be afraid to make your presence felt. Have a relationship with lawmakers and be an active participant in creating policy that's conducive to pro-business policies, whether it be tax policy in your community, zoning policy in your community, that allows for new mixed-use developments where your employees would want to live.
So that would mean when you getting involved with city managers and governors, as many city officials as possible to make sure that they're going to provide the climate that is conducive to making your employees happy and excited to be working and living where they are.
Yes, that's a very important part of the site selection process that executives need to really take seriously. Spending time with the governor, with the mayor, and just getting a sense, is this someone I want to be a partner with?
Yes.
To build a vibrant, strong community and vibrant economy.
Now, I might just say it might be a word of advice for some of the governors and mayors out there to start to take it seriously, to spend some time with the businesses as well.
Yes, and the most successful cities and states are ones that have a proactive salesman in chief, that actively courts new business, that does prospecting visits with CEOs and other influential business leaders, and provides platforms for companies to make a positive social impact. We talked earlier about, incentives becoming, more contentious of an issue in site selection. A way to mitigate that is for a company to invest in a way that, promotes positive social impact and positive social change. And that's an area where a Democrat or a Republican lawmaker can do good and create an economic development opportunity.
That's some fab, John. There's so much, and we'd love to. This has been so informative. These are the sort of things you get snippets of only, but to get it from you about all these things, having been on the front line, involved with these high-profile businesses, but also just getting down to the employees and the people and the decision makers themselves, to learn about the process and the importance of this. And it is critical today. It's been really a pleasure having you on our show. So I would like to thank you. Make sure for our viewers, please make sure to view us on Instagram as well. We want to make sure that people are looking at us. It's the Muva. Find us on Instagram. The Boyd Company, you should be finding them on Instagram. The website, John, is there somewhere we should refer people to be viewing more information about your company besides just what I've said here?
You can go to our website, theboydcompany.com, but also Twitter. We're active on Twitter. Our Twitter handle, appropriately enough, The Boyd Company. If you go to our homepage, there's a link to our Twitter site. And also, you can, bizcost.com is our e-commerce division, and we're introducing a new platform of real-time operating cost information that the development and site-seeking community, I think, will find especially timely right now.
John, that is fabulous. This is a great bit of feedback to give us all that information, a great informative discussion with you. Until then, thank you everybody for listening. Thank you, John Boyd, and everybody, please keep moving.